Someone in the comments of the video about the theme of Arcane asked me why I referred to Jinx as Powder in the end of Act 2. And that was not a mistake. That is because she broke the promise of Jinx. What do I mean by broke the promise of Jinx? To set up for this, let's go through a couple of things from her backstory as well as Blisters in Bedrock, particularly a specific scene from Blisters in Bedrock. So I think generally as a fandom, we have a tendency to agree that Jinx and Powder are somewhat two different people. Powder was a kind, sweet kid, and Jinx is an explosive, loving, destructive psychopath. But there are three things that do tie one to the other, and in some ways also separate them, and that is weakness, strength, and protection. As a child, Powder was the smallest and weakest of her group. She was constantly being protected by everyone else. It went so far in some ways that Vi outright excluded her so that she would be protected, that she couldn't come to harm. Of course, despite being the one who needed protection in this gang or this group or this family, Powder was also a child of Vander, and a child of Vander is a protector. Powder's deepest wishes were to not be protected and to do the protecting herself. She thought she had gained an ultimate power to protect, and that turned into the ultimate catastrophe that destroyed her family, and thus was born the promise of Jinx. In the episode Blisters in Bedrock, during Vander's flashback sequence, The Last Drop, with Vander, Silco, and Felicia, Vi and Powder's mother, Felicia puts forward this conundrum she's been having in trying to come up with a name for her unborn child, specifically that decision, she says, that decision is something the child will live with for their entire lives. A name that is given to a child is one that is filled with all the hopes and wishes and history of that which comes before. Violet's name is born from this moment in this scene where they're discussing hope and the future and a world in which the Undercity is free. A promise that they will reach the surface because a flower needs sunlight to grow. Now, it's not terribly important to this video as a whole, but I'm mostly certain that Powder's name comes from powder blue, making a theme of colors between the children. But the gift of Powder is not so much important here as is the promise of Jinx. A chosen name differs from a given name. A chosen name is a promise to the self to be fulfilled or a revelation of the truth the person already knows. The promise of Jinx is a person who brings bad luck with them everywhere they go. The promise of Jinx is a person who hurts everyone who gets close to them. Vi, Milo, Clagger, Vander, Silco, Felicia, Connell, like the list from Act 1 is extensive. And whether or not she's actually at fault is irrelevant. To her, the promise of Jinx is a warning. Jinx is a character who neither wants to protect nor wants to be protected. Jinx can never be a protector because Jinx is a curse. But obviously Season 2 is very different in that regard. She fights side by side with Savika, aiding her as an equal. Something really that no one in her family has ever really done with her. But even more than that, Jinx takes on the role of a protector of Isha. And in doing so is a direct refutation of the promise of Jinx. She pulls Vi out of her self-destructive spiral and gives Vi the thing that she needs, a mission, a goal, something to protect. That is a violation of the promise of Jinx. She protects Vander and works to save him from being Warwick. That is a violation of the promise of Jinx. She protects Caitlyn, someone who she loathes, against her own personal whims, in violation of the selfish promises of Jinx. She violates the promises of Jinx because she does not want to be Jinx. But Dan, you say, what about the other goal, the goal about being strong enough to not be protected? Well, yes, that is a goal of the promise of Jinx. It is also the goal of Powder. And no, that strength is not a promise of Powder, but it was her wish to begin with. I will certainly admit that I don't think Jinx would ever go back to being Powder in any way, shape, or form, but I certainly don't think she's Jinx anymore either, both by display and by her own admission. I think she is neither Jinx nor Powder. I think she is some secret third thing that isn't really known to herself yet. But if you were to ask me to choose the appropriate label for that person, given the promises they fulfilled and the goals they achieved, it's not Jinx. It would have to be Powder.